was covered in a scarf, his eyes scanning the horizon. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the broken metal bones of old ships. These were war graves, remains of battles no one remembered. He wasn't here for history. He was here for salvage. His scanner beeped. He stopped. Something was buried beneath the sand, something big. Jaron brushed the sand away and found the edge of a silver hull. Alien metal, cold even under the sun. His heart jumped. This wasn't just any wreck. This ship was royal design, high class, untouched. He climbed through a crack in the hull, careful not to make noise. Inside, it was dark and quiet. The air smelled like smoke and blood. He moved slowly, flashlight in one hand, stun pistol in the other. Then he heard it. A small cough. A whisper. He followed the sound to a chamber near the back. His light shook slightly as it landed on the scene. A woman knelt on the floor, barely conscious. Her skin was smooth and blue, glowing faintly. Long silver hair fell around her shoulders. Her body was wrapped in torn fabric, covered in dust and bruises. But even in pain, her posture was proud, like a queen who refused to fall. In her arms, a small child clung to her. A little girl with the same glowing skin, the same silver eyes. She looked at Jaron with fear, then buried her face into the woman's chest. Jaron lowered his weapon slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. The woman looked up. Her lips moved. She tried to speak. He knelt closer now. Then with shaking hands, she gently pushed her daughter toward him. "Please, take her," she said. "Save her." Jaron froze. Her voice was broken, but clear. She placed the child on the floor, then dropped her hands to her knees. She lowered her head like an offering. "If you must take me as your concubine," she whispered, "then do it. Just save my daughter." Jaron stared at her, stunned. This wasn't a trick. Her eyes, large, glowing, wet with tears, looked straight into his. She wasn't begging for herself, only for the child. He looked at the girl, shivering, holding her mother's hand. Then a noise outside made him snap around. A growl. Low, mechanical, getting closer. Jaron grabbed the girl and pulled her close. "We need to move." The woman didn't answer. She was too weak to stand. Jaron made a fast decision. He threw off his jacket, wrapped it around the girl, and lifted the woman over his shoulder. She cried out softly but didn't fight. He moved fast through the wreckage, heart pounding. Outside, the growl grew louder. Something moved through the sand, something that wasn't human. A tracker. He'd heard of them. Machines that hunted royal bloodlines. No soul, no mercy. Only orders. He reached his rover and threw the child in the seat. Then he placed the woman beside her. The sand behind him cracked. He turned just in time to see it rise tall. Sharp, made of metal and bone. It screeched. He hit the accelerator. The rover jumped forward, tires spinning. The monster chased behind, leaping over broken ships like an animal. The child screamed. The woman reached out and held her close. Jaron swerved between dunes, dodging metal wreckage and bone piles. The tracker was fast, but not faster than him. One sharp turn, then another. The machine missed the last dune and crashed into a fallen carrier ship. Gone. For now. Jaron didn't stop until they reached the edge of a canyon. He hid the rover under a rocky overhang. Inside the shelter, he helped the woman lie down on a blanket. She stared at him. "Why did you save us?" Jaron sat beside her, catching his breath. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe because someone should." She looked at her daughter, now sleeping against her chest. "You didn't want me?" "No," he replied. "I'm not that kind of man." A single tear slid down her cheek. "Thank you." Jaron sat in silence, watching the stars rise over the sand. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what she was running from, but he knew one thing. The shelter was silent. It wasn't over the soft hum of the rover's cooling system and the quiet breathing of the sleeping child. Jaron sat at the entrance, rifle across his lap, eyes scanning the dark canyon. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. Not. After what he saw, and what followed them through the sand, that thing, that tracker, it was no ordinary machine. It had moved like it knew her. Like it had a mission, and that meant they weren't safe. Not yet. Behind him the woman stirred. He turned as she slowly sat up, her blue skin catching the moonlight. Her silver hair clung to her face, messy but still strangely regal. She looked around, confused at first. Then her eyes landed on her daughter, still sleeping under his jacket, her shoulders relaxed. "You didn't leave us," she said softly. Jaron gave a small shake of his head. "Didn't plan to." She looked down. "Most do." He offered her a water bottle. She took it, sipping carefully. Even now, weak and worn, she moved with quiet strength. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Talira." He blinked. The name was familiar. Princess Talira? She looked away, shame touching her face. Not anymore. Jaron leaned forward. Why was a royal hiding in a wreck? Why was that thing hunting you? She didn't answer at first. Then, in a voice flat but heavy, she said, "I was promised to another empire as a peace gift. A royal marriage. But when our empire fell, they didn't want a broken crown." Jaron stared. "They left you behind? They used us as bait." Her eyes burned now, not with fear, but anger. "Me and my daughter told the trackers. We escaped, then sent them after us to clean the mess." Jaron couldn't believe it. He'd heard of cold politics. "But this? You're telling me your people traded you like property, then sent killers to erase the evidence?" "Yes." She looked him dead in the eyes. "Now you understand why I offered myself to you." He didn't respond. "You thought it was about desperation," she continued. "But it wasn't. It was about power. I had none left. All I had was my daughter. So I gave the only thing left that might save her. Me." Jaron exhaled through his nose. "That's not how I work," I noticed. The child stirred then, mumbling in sleep. Talira leaned over and stroked her head gently. "Her name is Lena," she whispered. "She doesn't know who I used to be. She only knows hunger, hiding, and fear." Jaron looked at the small girl, curled under his jacket like it was armor. "She called me Jaron." Talira smiled faintly. "That's a good sign. She doesn't trust anyone." Jaron stood. "You need real shelter. Somewhere safe. I know a place." Talira sat up straighter. "Where?" "Old mining station. Abandoned. Now few people know it exists." He loaded a few packs into the rover, but it's underground, hard to find, harder to track. Talira hesitated. "You trust me?" he asked. "No," she said honestly, "but I trust what you've done so far." He gave her a short nod. By morning, they were moving. The journey was rough. Lena was quiet most of the way, but her tiny hand clung to Jaron's shirt every time the rover jumped or shook. Talira never took her eyes off the horizon. Jaron watched her in the mirror. She didn't act like a princess. She didn't complain. She didn't ask for special treatment, but every now and then, her fingers would twitch like she was ready to grab something sharp if needed. When they reached the base, hidden under rock and dust, Talira said nothing. She simply followed Jaron down into the dark tunnels. The lights flickered on. Old systems kicked to life, clean water, air filters, solar power. Security doors. Lena laughed as warm air touched her skin. She ran to a soft couch and jumped in, giggling. Jaron turned and saw Talira's eyes well with tears. "Is this real?" she asked quietly. "It's yours now," he said, "for as long as you need." But as he turned to check the generator, a small red light blinked on his console. Tracker signal detected. Distance, 11 kilometers. His stomach dropped. He hadn't lost them. He walked back to Talira. "We have a problem," She stood fast. They found us? Maybe not yet, but they're close. Too close. Talera clenched her fists. I won't let them take her. Jaren loaded his weapon. Then we'll fight. She looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't see a scavenger. She saw a soldier, a protector, maybe even a future. Jaren didn't sleep that night. He sat alone near the door of the old mining station, staring at the blinking red dot on the screen. The tracker was still out there, moving slowly, searching. 11 kilometers. Maybe 10 by now. In the next room. He could hear Lena breathing softly in her sleep. Talera sat beside her, silent, her back against the wall. She hadn't spoken since the warning, but her eyes stayed open, watching, waiting. Jaren walked in quietly and offered her a bowl of warm broth. Eat, you need strength. She looked at the bowl, then at him. You're not like the others. Jaren sat beside her on the floor. What others? Men who wanted power. Who wanted me because I was a princess, or because I had no choice. He said nothing. She took the bowl and sipped it slowly. Her hand still shook. I once thought I'd be queen, she whispered. They trained me to speak with pride, to smile even when I wanted to scream. I never knew what it meant to be safe. Not really. Jaren stared ahead at the flickering wall lights. Funny, I never knew what it meant to be wanted. Not for what I could fix or kill, just for being me. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she said softly, You care about Lena. She's just a kid. You care, she repeated. I see it. She feels it too. She draws you. Draws me? Talera smiled for the first time. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small piece of metal. On it, drawn with burnt wires and scratched lines, was a stick figure holding the smaller stick figure's hand. The big one had short hair and a square jaw. The smaller one had big round eyes and what looked like wavy hair. She calls this her family now, Talera sighed. You, her, and me. Jaren blinked, speechless. She doesn't understand what concubine means. She only knows that someone stayed when everyone else left. Jaren tried to speak, but his throat tightened. I offered myself to you, Talera sighed, more serious now, because I had nothing else. But you didn't take me. You gave me something instead. A reason to believe I'm more than what they said I was. She placed the drawing on his lap. You didn't just save us. You changed us. Then, behind the wall, something beeped. Tracker signal. 7 kilometers. Closing fast. Jaren stood up. Tail IRA did too. I can fight, she said. I wasn't just a princess. I was trained in defense. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? She walked over to the old supply locker and pulled out a worn plasma blade. The hilt still had blood marks on it. She turned it on. The blue light glowed against her face. I may not be royalty anymore, she said, but I remember how to survive. They prepared quickly. Jaren taught her how to hold his sidearm. She taught him how to read body language, how the trackers moved before they struck. They weren't just machines. They were hunters. Lena stayed inside the deepest room, tucked into a locked storage bay with air, light, and a recording of Talera's voice repeating lullabies. Jaren watched Talera train with the blade. She moved, like someone who had once lived in gold halls, but had learned to survive in dirt. You don't hesitate, he said, watching her slice through the air. I don't have the luxury anymore. They placed traps in the tunnels, charged old defense grids, lined the narrow halls with broken wire and flash bombs. As the sun began to rise above the canyon, Talera stood at the edge of the main tunnel. She looked down the path the tracker would come from. I used to think bravery was giving orders, she said. Now I know it's standing next to someone when you don't have to. Jaren stood beside her. I used to think strength was walking alone, he replied. Now I think it's knowing when not to. She turned to him. The air between them was still, charged, uncertain. Then, without warning, the alarm screamed. Tracker. Breach detected. 200 meters. Jaren grabbed his rifle. Talera tightened her grip on her blade, and somewhere in the tunnels, the sound of metal claws scraping against stone echoed closer. They didn't speak, they just looked at each other and waited. To fight. The tunnel lights flickered red. Jaren's hand tightened around his rifle grip. Talera stood beside him, blade ready, her blue skin glowing slightly in the emergency light. The air in the mining station was thick, almost holding its breath. Then came the sound: click, drag. Click. Metal claws scraping stone. The tracker was near. Jaren motioned for Talera to stay behind cover. She didn't listen. She crouched beside him, sharp-eyed, silent. "You sure you can do this?" he whispered. Her eyes stayed forward. "I have no choice." The tracker came into view. It was twice Jaren's height, a fusion of machine and something once living. Its chest had a black royal crest scorched into it. Like a warning, this unit kills for the crown. Its head turned, scanning the corridor. Its red eyes locked onto the door behind them, the one hiding Lena. Talera's face changed. Jaren saw it. Not fear, but rage. He fired first. The shot sparked off its armor, slowing it. Talera charged, her plasma blade humming through the air. She slashed at its shoulder. Sparks exploded. The tracker turned, slamming her with a backhand. She flew against the wall, groaning. "Fall back!" Jaren shouted, but she was already up again. Bleeding but burning with fury, Jaren pulled a detonation trigger. A flash bomb lit the tunnel, disorienting the machine. Talera sprinted behind it, stabbing deep into its spine. It roared, twisted, and smashed the wall, breaking the grid open. Jaren grabbed a power conduit and jammed it into the tracker's side. Electric current surged. It screeched and collapsed, convulsing. Smoke filled the air. Sparks rained. Tail IRA limped over to Jaren, breathing hard. "Is it down?" "No," he said, "but we are still alive." "That's something." Suddenly, she looked down at him. Was bleeding. His shirt had been torn open across the chest, a long gash revealing not just the wound, but a mark. Her breath caught. Burned into the center of his chest, faded, but unmistakable, was the royal slave brand of House Serathis. Her house, her crest. She stared at it as if the air had vanished. Jaren followed her gaze. Realized what she saw and looked away. "You were a slave?" she whispered, voice shaking. He didn't answer. "My house did that to you," she said, barely audible. "I know." She stepped back, ashamed. "Why didn't you say something?" Jaren's jaw clenched. His eyes burned with a deep, tired fire. "Because I didn't save you for revenge, and I didn't walk away because of the past." He turned to check the machine's remains, but Talera grabbed his arm. "You were one of the captured soldiers." "From the outer moons?" "I was part of a rescue crew," he said. "We were tricked. Your empire marked us as slaves and sent us into the mines. I escaped. The others didn't." He looked at her, not with hate, but with a truth that hurt more. "I saw your face on posters back then," he added. "Daughter of Peace, Light of the New Alliance, and I hated you. Every single day." Talera's lips trembled. Then, "Why? Why save me now?" "Because Lena is innocent," Jaren said. "And because I realized you weren't the one pulling the strings." Tears formed in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I thought I had nothing left to give," she said. "But you gave even after I took so much from your kind." "I didn't give for you," Jaren said. "I gave for what comes next." Silence, deep, still. Then from the shadows, a new sound buzzed. Another signal. Not one tracker, two. Jaren's scanner blinked rapidly. "We've got more incoming." Talera wiped her eyes and stood tall. Her pain was real, but her posture was fire. "Then we stop him, together." He gave a short nod. They worked fast. Jaren armed the final trap, an old mining charge wired to collapse the tunnel if needed. Talera secured the back doors, leading Lena deeper into the emergency shaft. Before sealing it, she looked at her daughter and whispered something in their alien language. Then she walked out. Jaren stood at the tunnel mouth, rifle loaded. She stood beside him, holding her blade. No fear now, only purpose. As the second and third trackers entered the outer halls, the station groaned. Jaren checked his weapon, eyes narrowing. "You still think I'm just a scavenger?" he asked. Tail ER smiled faintly, lifting her blade. "No," she whispered. "Now I know exactly who you are." And when the monsters came, they didn't run, they stood. The tunnel walls were scorched black. The battle had ended hours ago, but smoke still lingered in the air, clinging to the stone like old ghosts. Jaren sat slumped against the far wall, bloodied and bruised. His rifle lay beside him, broken. His knuckles were torn from the fight. His shirt in tatters. And yet he was alive. So was Talera. She sat across from him, holding a cracked ice pack to her ribs. Her blue skin was scraped, her once silver hair now tangled and singed. But she didn't look away from him. Not anymore. Between them, on the floor, lay the final tracker's shattered head. Dead. For real. This time. Lena peeked out from the emergency shaft, her wide silver eyes scanning the wreckage. When she saw Jaren sitting upright, her face lit up. She ran toward him, arms wide. He caught her with a quiet grunt, hugging her close as she buried her face into his chest. "I was scared," she whispered. "So was I," he said gently. "But you're okay now." Talera watched the two silently, something heavy settling in her chest, something soft and unfamiliar. It wasn't fear anymore. It wasn't survival. There was something closer to hope. Later, after Lena fell asleep in a bed made from old mining blankets and salvaged foam, Talera approached Jaren quietly. He sat near the tunnel mouth, stitching a cut across his arm. His movements were slow, careful, the way a man stitched without anyone else to do it. "Let me help," she said softly. He looked up, hesitant, untrained. She added. He nodded and handed her the needle. She knelt beside him, steadying his arm. Her hands were cold, but gentle. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she spoke. "That mark on your chest," she said. "The brand," he didn't flinch, "still bothers you?" "It haunts me," she admitted. "Not because I saw it, but because I never knew it existed. Not truly. I lived in the palace. I wore jewels, gave speeches about peace, all while people like you were being tortured in mines under my family's name." She pressed the needle through his skin. He didn't even blink. "I used to think I was a victim when they left me behind," she continued. "But now, maybe I'm not the one who was broken. Maybe I was part of the machine that did the breaking." Jaren's eyes flicked toward her. "You didn't brand me." "No, but I lived in comfort while others bled." "You were just a girl," he said, trained to smile and obey. She paused, then whispered, "So were the trackers." The words hung in the air like a weight. She tied the final stitch, cut the thread with a blade, and sat back. "You could have let us die," she said. "I almost did. But you didn't." He didn't reply. She looked down. "And I could have hated you for what that mark meant. But I didn't." Silence again. "Why?" he finally asked. "Because my daughter calls you home." Her voice cracked. "Because when I see her sleep in your arms, I feel safer than I ever did surrounded by guards with guns." Jaren looked at her fully now. The fight was gone from her face, but something deeper had taken its place. "Truth. You didn't save us out of pity," she said. "You saved us because you still believe something good can come from something broken." Jaren stood slowly and walked toward the firelight. "Maybe," he said, "but I didn't expect to become part of it." Talera followed. "I offered myself to you that first day, out of fear, desperation. She stepped closer. But now I want you to understand something. He turned to face her. I don't offer myself anymore to survive, she said. I offer because I see you, the real you. She reached out, slowly, carefully, and rested her hand over the brand on his chest. I'm not asking you to forgive the past, she whispered. But maybe, together, we can build something new. Jaren looked at her hand, then at her eyes. They glowed softly, not with alien power, with human emotion, with something that didn't need a name yet, just real. That night, Jaren stayed near Lena as she slept, but Talera didn't return to her side of the base. She stayed close to him, just a few feet away, not as a princess or a guest, but as something in between, not lovers, not strangers, just two broken souls, slowly learning how to heal. Together. 3 days passed in quiet repair. The base still smelled like burned metal and plasma, but it was standing. The tunnels were patched, and the security doors reinforced. The air was cleaner. The food recycler worked again. Lena was laughing more. Sleeping through the night. Drawing pictures of stars, ships, and Jaren. Always Jaren. Talera watched her daughter become a child again, and for a moment, she allowed herself to believe they might actually be safe. But peace, she had learned, was a trick. It always ended. That morning, a cold shadow passed over the canyon. Jaren stepped outside to check the solar coils and froze. There, slicing across the blue sky like a blade, was a Royal-class cruiser, sleek, silver, imperial markings glowing on its hull. He ran back inside. Talera. She was already standing, clutching Lena to her chest. They found us, she whispered. Her face had changed. All the warmth from the last few days gone, replaced by a cold, practiced calm. They won't take her, Jaren said. Or you. Talera looked at the door. You don't understand. They won't ask. The ship didn't land near the station. It descended directly above it. Seconds later, a voice echoed from the sky, amplified through sonic speakers. Talera of House Sarathis. You are ordered to surrender. Jaren loaded his pistol. Stay inside. Take Lena into the deep shaft. But Talera stepped forward. No, Jaren blinked. What? I know that voice, she said, her jaw tightening. It's him. Who? Commander. Threx, my former fiancé, the one I was promised to. Jaren's stomach turned. You were supposed to marry him? Yes, she said bitterly. To stop a war. Instead, he used me to start one. Then he left me and Lena to die. Jaren narrowed his eyes. Then why is he back? She answered without hesitation. Because he wants Lena. The cruiser landed with a low hiss, dust rising like smoke. Threx stepped out, tall and regal in dark silver armor. His hair was white gold. His face cold and handsome, but empty, like a statue with a crown. 10 royal guards followed him. Talera stepped forward. Alone, Threx smiled. I see you survived. Not thanks to you, she said. He looked her over with casual boredom. You've fallen far, my dear, living in caves. Hiding like prey. She didn't move. Why are you here? I've come to complete what was started, Threx said. The child carries royal blood. She is the future of House Sarathis. You were meant to birth a legacy. I will claim her. She's not yours. She belongs to the Empire. No, she belongs to me. Threx's voice turned sharp. And the human, your new pet? Jaren stepped beside Talera. I'm the reason your guards didn't leave in pieces. Threx laughed lightly. You're not important. You're just what she used to survive. Talera turned to Jaren, her voice clear and sharp. That's not true. Then she looked back at Threx. I offered myself to him once, not because I wanted to, but because I had no power. And he refused. He saved us anyway. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. Threx's eyes narrowed. You're no longer a princess. You're just a scarred exile with a half-blood mistake. Jaren raised his weapon, but Talera beat him to it. Slapped out her open palm, cracked across Threx's cheek, echoing through the canyon. You speak of bloodlines, she said, voice shaking with rage. But you know nothing of loyalty. Or love. Threx's calm shattered. He grabbed her wrist, and suddenly, Lena's voice rang out from behind the rocks. Don't touch my mama. Everyone turned. Lena ran out, straight toward Talera and Jaren. Jaren stepped in front, but Threx shouted, Hold her! The guards moved. Jaren fired. One fell. Talera swung her blade. Another dropped, but they were outnumbered. Then Lena screamed. A sound not of fear, but pure, deafening energy. A sonic wave burst from her, pushing back the guards. Everyone froze. Lena's eyes glowed white. Her small body shimmered with power. Talera stared in shock. She's awakening. Threx stumbled back. No. It's not possible. Jaren stepped in front of Lena, shielding her again. She's not a mistake, he said. She's more than any of you ever were. Threx retreated, stunned. But before boarding his ship, he spoke one final warning. Can't run forever. That child will be hunted, feared, or used. Talera shouted after him, Then we'll fight. And we'll win, because we're not alone anymore. The ship lifted off and disappeared into the clouds. Jaren knelt beside Lena, who collapsed into his arms, exhausted. Talera knelt too, brushing hair from her daughter's face. She's changing. Talera whispered. Her blood, her power. It's more than mine. More than his. Jaren looked at both of them. Then we protect her, not as a weapon, but as a daughter. Talera met his gaze. And what about me? He smiled softly. You? You're already family. The desert wind whispered softly through the canyon. The station was quiet again. But something had changed, not just in the air, but in the people inside. Lena slept peacefully now. Her breathing even curled between two warm bodies, one human, one alien. Her power had calmed after the surge. But the truth remained. She was no longer just a child. She was a symbol of something new, something dangerous and powerful. Jaren stood outside the entrance, watching the horizon. His rifle was slung low, but his eyes were sharp. He wasn't waiting for enemies this time. He was waiting for a choice. Talera joined him quietly, her cloak brushing the stone. Her bruises had faded, but her mind was still at war. She stood beside him without speaking. You know he'll come back, Jaren said, not looking at her. I know, she replied, but next time he won't just face us. He'll face something far greater. She handed him a small black device. He looked down. A signal beacon? A broadcast crystal, she corrected. Royal frequency. Once activated, it reaches all corners of the fallen empire. Jaren raised an eyebrow. You planning to start a war? No, she said. I'm planning to start a truth. They walked back inside. Lena was awake now, sitting up with messy hair, rubbing her eyes. Are we leaving? She asked softly. Talera knelt beside her. No, little star. We're staying. But we're about to speak to the galaxy. She looked to Jaren. He nodded. Talera stepped in front of the old console. With a deep breath, she activated the crystal and began to speak. This is Talera of House Seraphis, once called princess, once abandoned. I speak now not as royalty, but as a mother, as a survivor, and as someone no longer silent. You sent hunters to erase me. You called my daughter a mistake. You branded the man who saved us like an animal. But we survived, and we are stronger than you ever feared. I will not hide, and I will not hand over my child to men who wear crowns, but have no hearts. If any among you still believe in something better, if you're tired of bloodlines and lies, come find us. We are not building an empire. We are building a home. The message ended. For a long time there was only silence. Then Jaren looked at her. That was bold, she smiled. Was it foolish? He shrugged. Everything worth doing usually is. Over the next week, ships began arriving, not warships. Old freighters, rebel cruisers, quiet refugees, former royal guards who had walked away when the empire burned. In slowly, the base became more than a hiding place. It became a village, a beginning. Talera led, but not with orders. She taught, she listened. She stood with people, not above them. And Jaren? He became something he never expected. A leader without needing a title, a protector, and a father. One evening, Talera found Jaren fixing a water pipe. He was sweating, shirt off, working with a wrench and humming softly to himself. She stood there a moment before speaking. You know, she said, I once believed love had to come with a crown. Jaren didn't look up. And now? Now I think it comes with calloused hands and quiet mornings. He turned to her slowly. Her voice softened. I offered myself to you once, out of desperation. But now, I offer again. Not because I need you, but because I want you. She stepped forward and placed her hand over his. Jaren looked into her eyes, those glowing silver eyes that had once begged for mercy. Now, they held something else. Peace. He smiled. I don't want a concubine, he said. Tail raised an eyebrow. No, no, I want an equal, a partner. A mother to a wild, powerful kid who draws me as stick figures every day. She laughed, a real laugh this time. And in that quiet moment, there were no empires, no weapons, no bloodlines. Just two broken hearts choosing each other. Years later, children would grow up hearing the story of the woman who refused to bow, and the human who chose compassion over revenge. They wouldn't call her Princess Talera anymore. They called her the Mother Flame, and they called him the man who stood. But to Lena, they were just Mama and Jaren, the two people who never gave up on her. Not even when the stars tried to tear them apart.